primaries are actually for. They serve a purpose. One of the things they do is they serve to inoculate candidates against attacks in the general. And we've been talking all week about viruses and vaccines, right? And the way that viruses work. The way that vaccines work is you get a little tiny dose of the actual virus, and you put that in your body, and you build up antibodies so that you could defend yourself against the virus when it comes. And in a lot of ways, that's what a hard-fought primary does. You get stories like what Bernie Sanders thinks about Fidel Castro's literacy program, or remember back in 2008, in the primary, dominating all the cable networks and all the coverage, the story about Barack Obama's longtime beloved pastor in Chicago, who said, "God damn America," from the pulpit. Sean Hannity is still talking about that, by the way. And then when these attacks get rolled out in a primary battle, as inevitably they do, because everyone's sort of emptying their chamber and they're dropping all their oppo, the candidates and the campaigns have to figure out how to respond. You fight things out in the primary, so you have a plan when you reach the general election. And also, crucially, it's probably better that voters first hear about this during the primary, so they are not shocked by the news 6 days before the election, right? Imagine Jeremiah Wright dropping a week before Election Day. That's probably a much different story. So, you want to get that issue away from voters' front of minds as early as possible. And this is part of what the primaries do. You get a little bit of nastiness, and it prepares you for what's coming ahead. Now, all of that said, no one should be under any illusions about the difficulties that are inherent in the Democratic primary. Because the core fact is this: Democrats have a harder job than Republicans do. There's two reasons for that, I think. One is, of course, the nature of the Electoral College and geographic polarization in the United States at this moment. Democrats can't do what the Republicans have done, which is win the presidential election with fewer people actually voting for their candidate. That's not going to happen. Republicans can do that. Think about this. Since 1992, there have been 7 presidential elections. The Republican candidate has won the popular vote in one of those 7. That was George W. Bush's re-election bid in 2004. But of course, the Republican has been elected president 3 times, right? That's how Donald Trump won in 2016. In fact, there's a lot of people, and I think it's not crazy to assume that Donald Trump is likely to lose the popular vote again. Certainly conceivable. It's much more a question of what's going to happen in the Electoral College. So Democrats have that working against them. It's a lot harder for Democrats, as Hillary Clinton well knows, because they have to win more by bigger margins and they have to win in the right places. The second reason it's harder for Democrats is because they have to bring an extremely diverse group of people together into one group. There's 2 parties, 2 major parties in American life. There are 2 major political coalitions, right? And they are increasingly polarized and distant from each other ideologically and even physically, spatially. The Republican coalition, it's basically a bunch of different kinds of white people. I mean, I'm exaggerating a bit, obviously. There are all kinds of folks in the Republican coalition. It's an enormous country. There's tens of millions of voters. But the overwhelming majority of the Republican coalition in this day and age is white and Christian. White men and white women. There's some young white people in the coalition. There's some old white people. There's some rich white people. There's some poor white people. There's college-educated people. There's poorly educated people, as the president called them. Again, not just white people, right? This very state, of course, has a black Republican representing it in the United States Senate. But by and large, right, the overwhelming part of what that coalition is, demographically, the Democratic coalition is just everyone else, right? It includes, of course, millions of white folks. It also includes black people and Latino people and Asian American people. It includes Muslims, and it includes Jews, and it includes gay folks and straight folks, trans folks and cis folks. Every way you can slice and dice an electorate, the Democratic Party has some big chunk of that. And it's hard to get those people to come together. It's just a difficult thing. That's why Democrats have a harder political job. There are people who are experiencing American life, right? Their perspective on what's going on in the country from these wildly, wildly different and disparate point of views. And Democrats need to find a way to bring these people who all come from these wildly different life experiences into one big group to achieve this victory, to achieve this political project. And it's hard to craft a message that binds all those people together from all the different perspectives they have. Barack Obama was very good at this, right? He was the last successful person to win a presidential election with the current multiracial and multi-ethnic, multi-religious coalition that is the Democratic Party. But it is a hard political project. That said, it is a vital and essential one. This is what the Democratic Party will look like in the foreseeable future. Heck, it's what American democracy will look like into the foreseeable future. And there is no harder testing ground for durable multiracial political coalitions than the American South, right? Which has been the graveyard of those political coalitions historically. The Democratic Party in the state of South Carolina and throughout the South, right? The rest of the country, but throughout the South, it is a multiracial party. It has to be. Fundamentally and existentially, it's a multiracial party. And so the folks in this state and other states throughout the South, they have a harder job on the other side. So if this process feels painful and it feels torturous and difficult and full of obstacles, it's because it has to be.